All right, guys, what's going on? Good evening, everybody. Welcome aboard to our weekly recap. My name is Carlos Garcia, founder and CEO of Gar Capital. Glad to be with you this and every weekend, right around the evening time. I can't say I have an actual schedule for it. I guess it just really depends. But Sundays are usually the time I do it. So if you don't want to miss these videos ever, make sure to turn on notifications on YouTube. Make sure to like these videos. Really do appreciate it as always. Let's go ahead and get started. Starting off with the S&P 500 futures are open this evening. It is, what time is it? 9:30 this evening on a Sunday evening, April 28th. Dow futures are up 106. Nasdaq is up 42 points, and the S&P is up 11. We are long on both Nasdaq and S&P in terms of our signals. We are green, just about flat on both. So let's take a look at the S&P 500 first off, and why I like to be long here or to be bullish. I do expect us again. Remember, I talked about, I think it was about a week ago. I was talking about you don't get excited in terms of any kind of reflex rally or any kind of, can't say dead cat bounce, but it's a relief rally, is what I said. And really, until we get to the 50-day moving average, and unless we break above that, that's really where we start celebrating. So that's 51.65. I like us to get to there. Now, once we get there, that's probably make or break on Wednesday, the FOMC. That's the Federal Reserve meeting. And you can see that's at the top end of this trend line here, kind of a downward channel. We're starting to get a wedge now. As we get tighter to the wedge, it's either up or down. So again, we're going to use that as kind of our pivot in the future. So be prepared for any kind of short position we could have or a long position. Until we get to 51.68, this is how I think as high as we're going to get. So we're about 25 handles away. We can get a little bit of a bounce. Maybe we get a little more earnings juice. But until then, I think on Wednesday is where we'll probably end up right here. And then depending on what Powell and the FOMC say in terms of dot plot or expectation of rate cuts in the future, that's where we get either up or down. My personal opinion is that we do move a little higher, but we'll probably chop below 5,200 as we're starting to get into May. Now, we may have every reason in the world to pull back, but again, you can see how clean we bounced off that 100-day moving average. Looks like things are starting to stabilize, maybe some dip buying. We're going to get buybacks too, mind you. So, again, we're going to keep that as our focus level. Let's go to the NASDAQ now. Now, the NASDAQ did bounce above the 100-day, but again, was below it slightly. So again, a little different from the S&P. We're right below the 20-day. So let's use that as our pivot point, right around 18. We'll use, what is this number? 18,942. So what is it? No, 17,942, excuse me. So we're right around 50 points away. That's where I would take some profit on NASDAQ. If we break above it, the next target will be around 18,000, 18,100 moving forward. So with this one as well, I expect us to get to around 18.1 or around 18,000 itself. That's where we'll kind of hang around. That'll probably hit our pivot point with the S&P, depending on what Powell says and the data comes in, up or down. So well, I'm bullish until we get to that level. Until then, I can't say we're get too excited. I'm really just scalping at this point. So that's where we are for the week in terms of the Nasdaq and the S&P, at least in terms of futures. Let's take a look at crude oil together. I do have some oil longs, so I want to keep an eye on it. We do have an upward trend. We broke down below it, recaptured it, rejected the 20. So I don't like this price action here. I want to make sure that we stay above the 50 days. So again, FOMC, that's going to affect the dollar, which is going to affect crude oil. We also have inventories on Wednesday. We just had our earnings for Exxon and Chevron. They were decent, not great. So I still hold an Exxon. Let's take a look at crude oil again, that 50-day and that 20-day. We're right between those moving averages. We're down about 1% this evening. I don't have any positions open on crude, but I do have XOM. So XOM was a freebie as well. So worst case scenario, we're going to hit a quadruple top. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, technically speaking, if you want to look at it like that way. We need to recapture this gap fill here. Here's this gap fill. I don't know where that gap fill was. Is that a 4-hour chart? No, that's probably the daily. Excuse me. There gap, but yes, there is a gap to fill here at 119.36. I figured that we're going to get that gap filled. Good news is that we have until June for these calls. The also good news is I did see some dip buying and some call buying being done on Exxon post earnings. So let's see if we do get a bounce. We need to get to 119.36. That's the first gap fill, but we need to get to 120 as quick as possible. This is still an upward trend. Nothing has really changed. but we cannot get below these lows of 116.23. That's really the only key level that I'm seeing here. There's no gaps to fill below that I'm concerned about. You do have the 50-day at 113.15, but this is the lows right around 116.14. I don't think we get there. I say that crude oil goes higher, and I still think XOM gets to that high of 123.75. Let's take a look at the week we had. So we had Citibank, IWM, JPM, Freeport McMoran, and Tesla all hitting 5 for 5, a new 5 for 5 week. Uh, so again, we are now coming back from a tough week last week and getting back to the winning ways. So that's a really good sign. And again, it's not all tech, only one tech stock. You have a copper company, a bank, small caps, and another bank. That's pretty good, mixture of stocks that we've been trading in different sectors. So the only three that we've had losing this month in April was really the carryovers for March that we filled, which was Bitcoin, Apple, and DraftKings at 28%. So 14 out of 17 this month. We still have a couple trades open: Valero, ExxonMobil, Bank of America, and an FCX trade. So 14 out of 17, 82.3%. Very, very good. Not as good as March, obviously 13 out of 13, but I'm very proud of the work we're doing. I'm trying to see if we can get a couple more before the month end, which is on Tuesday, but I won't push it. We don't have to. But again, more of this, more perfect weeks. That's what I want to see in the future. So I went ahead and put all the notes on those trades on our Discord server. If you are interested in joining, make sure to go on our website and scroll down to free plan. And that's where you'll have access to the stocks I'm watching this week. I posted that around 7:41 p.m. And all the charts, watches and charts for the week are there. Every trade that we send out comes through with a premium masterclass, a breakdown of each single trade and why we got in, and updates throughout the day of these positions, halftime report, pregame report, postgame report. It's like sports. It's kind of like that. That's how I treat it. So a very good read if you want to get a read on the action for the week coming up. Premium members have the watch list as well, while the rest of the members, which is on the live market blog, they have their watch list this week. Apple, AMD, and Amazon. I talked about a couple of them on the IG live I did with Nick. So Apple, I expect Apple to move higher, AMD to move higher, and Amazon, that could be rather neutral. So let's take a look at both. All right, Apple. Now, Carlos, why do you think Apple's going to go higher? Well, good news is that we're above the 20-day. That's the first sign. But just like before, as we start hitting that local low here, we start moving higher. So what I want to get is above 173 or so. 174 would confirm that's that trend line. So 174, that's above the 50-day. We'll move higher to 185. It's kind of the setup that we had on Tesla, where everyone hated it. It was pulling back, but it's been hovering at that support. And bears have had every excuse to really pull the plug here, and they haven't. So I do expect Apple to move higher. I am bullish on Apple. It doesn't mean you have to play it on earnings. Obviously, you can wait for it, but I expect that the earnings should be a positive for Apple. So if you were looking to buy, reminder, the implied volatility should be rather elevated. So the prices are going to be elevated for calls. So I'd buy some time. I would not do it for Friday expiry, but let's see the price action with the Fed on Wednesday as well before we do any kind of major moves. AMD reports on Tuesday after the bell, above 160, up to 177 and a quarter. That'll be the 50-day. This has a downside wedge breakout on the daily. I expect AMD to move higher as well. That's what I wrote. Let's take a look at it. AMD, downward wedge, breakout. So we need to get above 160 to 177.25. So we need to get above 160. Let's place the alert together. 2-1. We'll just put a 1. And then we can target right here to 165 or around 170. 165 being the 120-day moving average cross. You got 177 for the 50. That would be my major level to target. Then you have 144.82 being our support. So let's do that moving forward. AMD and Apple, I expect them to move higher based on the technicals. I don't know what they're going to report, to be completely honest. I have no idea. I don't have inside information or anything, just pure technicals. And then the last one here on top of our watch list is Amazon. Amazon does have that wedge. It did break out above and then it pulled back. We do have a gap to fill here at 175.90. 173.86. We do have a downside gap here at 160. If we can break above here, this 2181.56, I'm going to do 183. If that does break, I'll target 190 for all-time highs. Again, I'm rather neutral because you have a gap to fill below and you can also break above. So it's going to be one of those reactions. We'll see what we can get. And again, you don't have to trade earnings. You don't have to trade that tape. We did Boeing with Masterclass, and that was a tough one. And luckily, we got out with some profit. I talked about that on the morning note last week. So, with that being said, again, it's going to be just a wait and see approach with the Fed on Wednesday. I don't expect them to raise rates. I don't expect them to cut rates. I expect stocks to go higher until we get to that 50-day, and that's where we hit some kind of either resistance or some kind of pivot where either going to be up or down from there sharply. If you were asking me personally where I think we're going to go, I think we're going to chop a bit for May. But as we start getting into the summer for June, that's where we start cooking higher. So, yes, absolutely. I think as the moment right now, it's looking good, but break above the 50, and then we're really cooking. The question remains, will the Fed help us get there? So we'll see what we do. In terms of earnings, pretty strong across the board. I think rather strong. The only one being Meta being the complete tank job, but we talked about that gap to fill. So the gaps matter, guys. Technicals matter. So we'll see what we get. Have a great rest of your evening. I will see you guys tomorrow for the morning note. I will see you guys in the server. Best reasons to join Guard Capital is because we have your back, guys. Premium signals have entries and exits breakdowns every week. We have each of the watch lists, like I talked about. We have a live market blog. Our trophy room, is where we have all our members showing off their gains. Congratulations for motivation or inspiration, whichever you prefer. Again, our server is not just a server, it's a great community, and we hope to have you there here at Guard Capital. Make sure to join us on our website, www.guard.capital. Select free plan to get access to our live market blog. See what we're about. Give us a chance. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just stay on the blog. It's free forever. And if you do love it, join our paid services. We'd love to have you on board. Have a great rest of your evening. I will see you guys tomorrow. Cheers all.